Hello, welcome to another episode of the Practice X Factor. It's great to be back with you this week and excited to share some content that I think is especially timely and relevant and could really have a big impact on your practice, even though on the surface it may seem like it doesn't apply to healthcare or dentistry or owning a practice for that matter. So what we want to share with you today is some info about GPT and how you can use it in your practice, as well as potentially other forms of AI that are up and coming. And this has really become a buzzword lately because in the first 5 days after it was released, GPT already had 1 million users. I think now they are well over 100 million active users and somewhere over 600 million total people who have at least tried the service out. And the market value on it's already, I think, over $1 trillion. To put that in perspective, I think Facebook took several months to get over 1 million users. Same with Spotify and some of the other unicorns, so to speak, that have gained a lot of traction. So as of right now, I think they say that over 70% of internet activity is controlled by Facebook or one of its apps, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, something like that. But it will be interesting to see what happens with AI over the next few years, and people have been talking about AI for a long time, that it's going to take over jobs and put people out of business. And I think to some degree that's true, but we'll get into the 80-20 principle and how I think this can apply to your practice and to the future of AI and, some ways that you can implement this. So what I want to cover are 3 ways that you can implement AI into your dental practice, and we'll get some more into the nuts and bolts onto how I think that can happen. And we might even have to do a part 2 of this podcast. If you've listened to some of the other recent episodes, often we keep them short and to the point so that, on your way home from work or out on your run or your workout, you can get through an entire episode and get some relevant content you can start implementing right away. So the first way that you could implement AI, ChatGPT obviously being the main one right now getting attention, but there are others as well, is to improve the service and experience that your patients get in the office. All right. This can reduce the workload on your team and, make things easier for patients to figure out. A couple examples of this would be typing up a patient handout for aftercare instructions for an implant service. Might be some FAQs on your website. Might be, putting together some instructions on, how to use an email service or some type of app that you want your team to use. Maybe how often to post, social media, those kind of things. But ways that you can enhance your patient experience through ChatGPT would be the first one. Hey, this is Tyler Williams with Pinecrest Practice Growth. Thanks for taking a quick break from the podcast. I just wanted to share with you an awesome new tool that you can download for just $7 for your practice. It's called the New Patient Lead Machine, and it'll teach you ways to organically attract membership-driven patients and excellent new patients and referrals to your practice without having to spend a whole bunch of money on software or marketing agencies that make a bunch of promises to you. You can visit newpatientleadmachine.com or click the links below the podcast to gain access today for just $7. Now back to the episode. The second one is creating content. So if you're not already, I would highly suggest that you implement patient retention letters in your practice. And what these are, this is a letter you would mail to your patient after treatment with some follow-up and instructions, basic education, and the incentive or the reason that they should act now to take action on whatever condition you diagnose them with. So, for example, if you find deep decay in a tooth and it's very close to a root canal, the letter would explain to the patient, how bad the cavity is, how deep it is, and even though right now maybe it's not hurting or it's not sensitive, once it gets worse, the cost could double or more They may have to miss work. They're going to have pain and have to do that dreaded 4-letter word we call root, as in root canal. Something like that, making it fun, but sending a letter out, just recapping what you talked about. And I can't tell you how much this has helped my practice and patients take things more serious, because in healthcare and medicine, when something's sent out as a letter or it's written down, people tend to take it much more serious than things that are just said off the cuff or verbally. The third way you can use Chat GPT for your practice would be in your marketing and your advertising. So you can quickly put together an email or a letter or a social media post or a headline, and even have variations of it with Chat GPT. And all you would have to do is simply go to Chat GPT and say, hey, put together a 300-word email about teeth whitening, the benefits it provides, and how it can start whitening your teeth today, and the do's and don'ts of teeth whitening. And within about 30 seconds, you'll have a nice email or blog post or letter that you can put out to multiple sources. And I suggest, especially if something's working well, that you use it in multiple ways. For example, if you send an email out and patients are responsive to it, then also make a version of it that's a letter and mail to patients, especially people who may not respond to email, or you don't have their email addresses, or maybe even people who already whiten their teeth, but they're some of your top patients, which is my favorite, and send that out to them as a letter or a postcard or something like that. Okay, now that we've covered the 3 ways you can use it, let's dissect that a little bit. All right. And the first thing I want to say is that I don't think AI is going to replace mid-level to high-level jobs anytime soon. If I'm in a minimum wage job or on the low end of that spectrum, then I'm probably a little more nervous about my job being replaced. An example I've given before is, if you go to McDonald's now, you can order on a big giant screen or you can order at the counter. And even though I think McDonald's does some things well, they can't hold a flame to what Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out or some of these, fast-growing, high customer service fast food chains can do as far as the customer service level. And even though I don't go to McDonald's very often, once in a while on a road trip or something with the family, typically, for convenience or whatever reason, stop there. But I'll typically order from the giant screen now rather than going to the counter, because I just can't handle the, sometimes the apathy and the lack of enthusiasm that we get. I am a big believer in strong patient service, strong customer service, face-to-face interaction when I'm dealing with people. And when I don't get that, I have a hard time with being patient with someone who doesn't care about those things, especially when I'm the customer, right? In training your team, you have to be patient, because many of your team members, especially people who haven't been in the job or workforce for a long time, they often haven't had a lot of good customer service. And so you have to be patient in training and teaching them. But when I'm the recipient, if I know that, using this big giant screen that's essentially a big giant iPad to place an order, I can see it. I know exactly what I'm getting. I can tell it how many I want of whatever the item is that I'm ordering, and it makes it easy. So if I was in that kind of job, I would be feeling threatened by AI and what it could potentially do. But from the standpoint of these 3 ways you can implement it in your practice, think about Chat GPT or AI as a way to get a rough draft or get 80% of it done, right? Oftentimes, just writing that first sentence of an email about a whitening promotion, or that headline that you want to put, in your office somewhere, that's often the hardest part. And that's where Chat GPT, I think, is really amazing, because it can very quickly get you a headline or the bulk of an article, and then you can go through and edit it. So this is where I think of, the cherry on top principle that John Maxwell talks about, which is a form of the 80-20 principle. But the cherry on top, if you haven't heard it, it's essentially a 10-80-10 principle. And that's where you would do the first 10% of delegating or defining or outlining a project, delegate somebody to do the heavy lifting, the 80%, and then you do a recap, and the final 20%, you put some final touches on it. And what this does is this allows you to get more, because you could essentially do 5 projects and give it 100%. But because you're only doing 20% of each project, if you go 20 times 5, it gets 100%. You could get 5 times as much done in a month or a quarter as a year as if you tried to do it all alone. So ChatGPT can really be your friend in that way, because you can get the bulk of, some text typing letters done. We make it a point that we send emails out regularly in the practice. Even though email deliverability is dropping, if we make it personal and interesting and not primarily related to teeth and dentistry, but something about real experiences we're having or real stories, patients really respond well to that for us. Your patient pool is different, so you've got to find out what your patients are looking for. But that's worked well for us. So keep in mind that, ChatGPT, it's going to be a little bit templated and a little bit stock, and it's not going to be very personalized. But what it is really good at is spelling, punctuation, grammar, content, doing the research for you, grabbing articles, grabbing headlines, and composing those. And then you can go through, and in just a few minutes, you can tweak it, add your own flair to it, make it sound like you. And to me, this is really the way that we can collaborate with AI and doing things, not replace what we're doing. What I would never do is just simply have it, some AI app, put something together and just shoot that out to my patients or my team or any client or customer without looking through it and making sure it makes sense. However, it helps me be a lot more effective and efficient in things as we're putting together, multiple blogs and emails for multiple businesses at once that we're working with and working in and own. It really helps us be more effective that way. So I like sports analogies a lot, and I really like sports history, sports documentaries. And back in the 90s, the Dallas Cowboys had a receiver named Michael Irvin, and he's known as one of the greatest of all time. And he taught that, when we'd have a new offensive lineman coming into the Cowboys, he would teach them his 3-second rule. And he would say, something to the point of, you're 300 pounds. The guy on the opposite side of the line from you is also 300 pounds. So unlike college, there's less mismatch. So he said that it really comes down to this. If you can keep him from pressuring our quarterback for just 3 seconds, that means the quarterback can get the ball to me. We go downfield and we can score. And if we can do that over and over, we can get to the Super Bowl. If he gets past you or moves through you in under 3 seconds, then we're going to be at home on the couch watching the Super Bowl or the playoffs. So we just need 3 seconds from you. And he, later went on to say, it is important to know that we need 3 seconds from you on every single play. So this just isn't him saying we need 3 seconds from you sometimes or most of the time. We need it all the time. We don't need much more than 3 seconds. But if you look at a lot of sports or business or practice owners, the big winners get really good at doing very good over and over and over again. Not necessarily perfect, or not really, really good or near perfect sometimes, and then really bad other times. It's that repetition of really good with occasionally some setbacks. Jim Rohn, who's known as one of the top multi-level marketer and advertising men of all time, he had a quote about, no one else can do the push-ups for you. And so just remember, when you're using AI, that it cannot do the push-ups for you. But what it can do in the context of, a workout or push-ups is it can help you set up the room, get dressed, get organized, do some of the, heavy lifting, less mentally taxing things that take up a lot of your time, so you can just focus on where you're really good, which is connecting personally with your patients and getting things done. There are all kinds of hacks now on Google Sheets and things that you can use AI for that, are sometimes above my pay grade as far as what I want to get into, because I would rather hire someone who understands that. But to some degree, I've had some experience with this, and I've used it quite a bit for different newsletters and emails and blogs we've put together, because it helps me also make sure that T's are crossed, I's are dotted, both figuratively and literally. As a side benefit, what I think AI is going to really help with, especially right now where, in the past few years, especially since the pandemic hit, dentistry's had this big challenge of increasing wages for team members, especially clinical team members, assistants, hygienists, doctors. And we're going to be talking more about that on an upcoming podcast. But what you have to remember is, for those wages to increase, you either have to increase your fees, decrease your insurance dependency, increase your membership enrollments, or some combination of those, or have less team members but still be able to produce more. And AI is a great way to do this, because then you can have more bonuses or pay for your best team members, even sometimes paying them above market value to retain them, because often they're worth it when they have that commitment and that drive and that willingness to help you grow your practice. But then you can weed out people who have no interest in seeing the big picture or really helping you mutually grow while they make a good income or good living. And AI can be a great tool for this. So, the other downside I would say to AI is, as I briefly mentioned, it can be a bit impersonal if you don't go through it, right? It's not going to be able to share a personal story about you unless you have lots of stories that are already available on the internet that it could go out and find. But you can have it comb through, blogs, articles, things you've previously written, and compose those. For me, I like to just add some personal stories or experiences to the content that I use for AI, and customize it, right? I've had it write several emails and articles, and they're pretty good, but they're not something that you would pay, for a high-level copywriter to produce. And so you have to know that either A, you know your patients and their wants, and you've surveyed them and know what they're looking for really well, or B, hire someone who can do that. And then the AI can do a lot of the heavy lifting for them, so you're not paying them as many hours to get the work done. But back in January of 2010, okay, so we're going back 13 years, USA Today marked 2010 as the year we stopped talking. And there's a issue of the newspaper during the bowl season, where at the top of the newspaper you see they're talking about 14 college bowls in 3 days. But right in the middle of the cover page, the biggest picture, there's an animation of a man and a woman back to back with their New Year's party hats on, holding their mobile devices up, and they call that the year we stopped talking. And unfortunately, that's probably only gotten worse with time. And, some of the reports say the highest traffic time on Facebook is like morning to midday on Wednesday. And you wonder, shouldn't these people be working? And I can promise you, people in your practice right now, as we speak, are on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Tinder or Snapchat when they should be working. And this isn't to shame anybody or saying that we all don't need some free time or a break, but it's to keep in mind that human interaction is becoming more and more scarce person to person, but it's becoming more and more commonplace online. And I believe this is a big area we can stand out as practice owners, is who can we sit down with face-to-face and train on how to talk to real patients and real people, or make a phone call, right? Texting's great, emails are great, social media is great, but I think face-to-face or phone-to-face, having conversations with patients is still the best way to increase your case acceptance, find out how somebody's really feeling, avoid bad or negative Google reviews, because text messages and emails, depending where you put the comma or the voice inflection, a statement can mean something very different. But when you talk to someone face to face, it can mean something, very different than what you might read in an email. And, even sometimes offering seminars in your practice or getting involved in your community and speaking arrangements can be a great opportunity. And I think it's going to be an even better opportunity over the next decade as online gets more and more taken over by artificial intelligence. The real world that we also live in is going to have a lot of opportunity for, sales and marketing and face-to-face interaction that's going to just continue to dwindle as technology advances. So that's going to cover it for today in this episode. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please leave us a review on iTunes. Reach out to us if you have any questions or you'd like any more information on the topics we discussed. We appreciate you being a fan of the Practice X Factor. Love sharing this content and look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Have a great week.
For more tools and tips on how to create an X Factor membership practice, visit yourpracticegrowth.com and subscribe to our free weekly email today.